Hyun-woo stared at the numbers on his screen for the third time that morning. Something was very wrong. He pushed his chair back from his desk and rubbed his tired eyes. The coffee in his cup had gone cold hours ago, but he barely noticed. The Interstellar Council building stretched high above the clouds of Nexus Prime. From his office window on the 42nd floor, Hyun-woo could see ships coming and going from the massive spaceport. Traders, diplomats, and tourists from hundreds of different worlds moved through the busy streets below. But the numbers on his screen told a different story. Humans were disappearing, not just a few people here and there. Entire families, whole communities. The monthly population reports showed that in the last 18 months, nearly 1 billion humans had simply vanished from colonies across the galaxy. They left behind their homes, their jobs, their lives. No one knew where they went. Hyun-woo had been the human ambassador to the council for 3 years. He had seen many strange things in that time. Wars between alien species, trade disputes that lasted decades, planets that changed hands like cards in a game. But nothing like this. He picked up his communication device and sent a message to Soo-jin. She worked in the population registry office 3 floors down. If anyone would have answers, it would be her. 20 minutes later, Soo-jin knocked on his door. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She carried a datapad in one hand and looked worried. "You asked about the human population numbers," she said, sitting down across from his desk. "I have been tracking them for months. The situation is worse than the official reports show." Hyun-woo leaned forward. "How much worse?" Soo-jin touched her datapad and numbers appeared in the air above it. 847 million humans have disappeared from 212 worlds. The rate is getting faster. Last month alone, we lost 93 million people. The room felt cold suddenly. Hyun-woo stared at the floating numbers. Each one represented a life, a family, a story that had suddenly ended without explanation. "Any pattern?" he asked. "None that makes sense," Soo-jin said. "Farmers from agricultural worlds, miners from asteroid colonies, scientists from research stations, even some from the core worlds where millions of people live. Rich, poor, young, old, it does not matter." "What do the local authorities say?" "That is the strange part," Soo-jin said. "There are no signs of struggle, no violence, no forced removal. People just leave. They take some personal items and disappear. Sometimes they leave notes saying they had to go somewhere important, but they never say where." Hyun-woo stood up and walked to his window. Below he could see a group of tall, blue-skinned Velthari diplomats walking through the plaza. Their forearms moved gracefully as they talked. Next to them, a group of the insect-like Krextai clicked and buzzed in their own language. The galaxy was full of different species, all trying to work together. But humans were vanishing and no one seemed to care. "Have you reported this to the council?" he asked. Soo-jin nodded. "I sent reports to all department heads. Most ignored them. The ones who responded said humans often move around for better jobs. They think this is normal." "Normal?" Hyun-woo turned back to her. "1 billion people disappearing is normal?" "The Velthari ambassador laughed when I mentioned it," Soo-jin said. "He said humans are always restless, always looking for something new. He thinks they will come back when they get bored." Hyun-woo felt anger rising in his chest. The Velthari controlled much of the galactic economy. They thought they were better than everyone else, especially humans. To them, humans were useful workers but not important enough to worry about. "What about the Zephyrians?" he asked. "They want forms filled out in triplicate before they will even discuss it," Soo-jin said. "By the time we finish their paperwork, another 1 million humans might be gone." The Zephyrians loved rules and procedures. They had turned bureaucracy into an art form. Getting them to act quickly was nearly impossible. Hyun-woo sat back down. "Show me the most recent disappearances." Soo-jin touched her datapad again. A star map appeared, showing the galaxy with red dots marking where humans had vanished. There were so many red dots that some areas looked like they were bleeding. "The mining world Kepler 442b lost its entire human population 3 days ago," she said. 15,000 people. The alien workers showed up for their shift and found empty houses. Personal items were gone, but everything else was left behind. Even the food was still cooking in some kitchens. Any communication from them before they left? None through official channels, but... Soo-jin paused. "But what?" "I have been monitoring quantum communication networks. There have been strange signals. Very short messages sent to human colonies just before the disappearances. The messages are encrypted and I cannot break the code. Hyunwoo felt a chill run down his spine. Someone is organizing this. It looks that way, Sujin said. But who? And why? Before Hyunwoo could answer, his communication device beeped. A message appeared. Council meeting in 1 hour. Mandatory attendance for all ambassadors. He looked at Sujin. I am going to bring this up at the council meeting. She shook her head. They will not listen. You know how they are. The Velthari think humans are beneath them. The Zephyrians will want committees formed to study the problem. The Krextai only care about trade routes. And the others? She shrugged. I have to try, Hyunwoo said. If I do not speak for my people, who will? An hour later, Hyunwoo sat in the Great Council chamber. The room was enormous, with seats for representatives from over 300 species. Most of the seats were empty today. Only the major powers bothered to attend regular meetings. Council Speaker Thekmor stood at the center of the room. He was Velthari, nearly 3 meters tall, with blue skin that seemed to glow under the chamber lights. His forearms moved as he spoke, each gesture showing his authority. Today we discussed trade agreements and shipping routes, Thekmor announced. The Zephyrian delegation has concerns about tariffs. Hyunwoo waited for the right moment. When there was a pause in the discussion, he stood up. Speaker Thekmor, I request permission to address the council about an urgent matter. Thekmor's large eyes focused on him. Ambassador Hyunwoo, what urgent matter requires our attention? Human populations are disappearing from colonies across the galaxy. Nearly 1 billion people in 18 months. I request a formal investigation. The chamber fell silent. Then Thekmor began to laugh. It was a sound like wind chimes in a storm. Other Velthari delegates joined in. Humans are always moving around, Thekmor said. They are like... What is the human word? Nomads. They go where they think life will be better. This is not the council's concern. With respect, Speaker, this is different, Hyunwoo said. Entire communities are vanishing without explanation. Someone is coordinating these disappearances. A Zephyrian delegate spoke up. If the human wishes an investigation, he must file Form 7742C with the Department of Species Relations. Then Form 8851B with Colonial Affairs. After a committee reviews, by then more humans will be gone, Hyunwoo interrupted. Thekmor raised one of his 4 hands. The council has spoken. If humans choose to leave their homes, that is their choice. We have more important matters to discuss. Hyunwoo felt the dismissal like a physical blow. He sat down, his face burning with embarrassment and anger. Around him, the other delegates had already moved on to discussing shipping routes and trade agreements. That evening, Hyunwoo sat alone in his apartment. Sujin had sent him another report. 3 more human colonies had emptied during the council meeting. 200,000 more people gone. He looked out at the city lights of Nexus Prime. Somewhere out there, humans were disappearing. Someone was calling them away from their lives, their homes, their families. And the council did not care, but Hyunwoo cared. He was going to find out what was happening to his people, even if he had to do it alone. The council might think humans were not important, but they were wrong. Every missing person mattered. Every empty house was a mystery that needed solving. He picked up his communication device and sent a message to Sujin. We need to talk. Tomorrow, early. Bring everything you have on the disappearances. If the council will not help us, we will help ourselves. Outside his window, a ship lifted off from the spaceport, carrying passengers to distant worlds. Hyunwoo watched it disappear into the night sky and wondered if any humans were on board, leaving forever for reasons no one understood. 3 months had passed since Hyunwoo first brought the disappearances to the council's attention. Nothing had changed. If anything, things had gotten worse. The rate of disappearances was now over 100 million humans per month. Entire star systems that once housed human colonies were now empty. Hyunwoo sat in a small cafe on level 15 of the council building. It was a quiet place where low-level workers came to eat lunch and complain about their jobs. No one paid attention to conversations here, which made it perfect for secret meetings. Mi Young slid into the seat across from him. She was a council security investigator, one of the few who took the human disappearances seriously. Her black hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail and her eyes constantly scanned the room, even when she was trying to relax. Any luck with the official investigation? Hyunwoo asked, though he already knew the answer from her expression. The council voted it down yesterday, Mi-young said. 37 votes against, 12 in favor, and the rest did not bother to vote at all. They say there's no evidence of criminal activity. Hyun-woo stirred his coffee angrily. How is 1 billion missing people not evidence? Because there are no bodies. No signs of struggle. No ransom demands. As far as the council is concerned, humans are just choosing to leave their homes. They say it is not their problem. So we investigate on our own, Hyun-woo said. Mi-young nodded. I have been tracking ship movements and communication records. There is definitely a pattern, but it is hidden well. Whoever's organizing this knows how to avoid detection. She pulled out a small data device and placed it on the table. A holographic display appeared, showing shipping routes and communication patterns across the galaxy. Look at this, she said, pointing to a series of red lines. These are cargo ships that visited human colonies just before the disappearances. They were registered as carrying farming equipment and medical supplies. But the shipping manifests do not match the actual cargo loads. What were they really carrying? Hyun-woo asked. I do not know yet, but I think they were picking up people, not dropping off supplies. Hyun-woo studied the display. Where did these ships go after leaving the human colonies? That is where it gets interesting, Mi-young said. They all went to different locations, but if you track them over several months, they all eventually visited the same coordinates in deep space, a place called Sector 7G. It is supposed to be empty space. Supposed to be? I sent a probe to check. It found traces of recent ship activity, lots of it, but whatever was there is gone now. Hyun-woo felt a mixture of excitement and fear. Finally, they had a real lead. But it also meant that someone was running a massive operation to move humans across the galaxy. The question was why. There is something else, Mi-young said. I found records of a human merchant named Taemin who died in a transport accident 2 years ago. Except he did not die. I have evidence that he is still alive and operating under a false identity. What kind of evidence? Financial records. Someone using his biometric signature has been making large purchases of food, medical supplies, and construction equipment, enough to supply a small city. Or a hidden colony, Hyun-woo said. Exactly. I think Taemin is part of whatever organization is behind the disappearances. Maybe even one of the leaders. Hyun-woo leaned back in his chair. How do we find him? I have been tracking his purchases. He is careful but not perfect. I think I know where he will be next week. Where? Kepler Station. It is a trading post on the edge of council space. He has been buying supplies there every 3 months. If the pattern holds, he will be there in 5 days. Hyun-woo made his decision. I am going with you. That is not a good idea, Mi-young said. If the council finds out I am investigating without authorization, I could lose my job. If they find out you are involved, they might remove you as ambassador. Let them try, Hyun-woo said. My people are disappearing and the council does not care. I have to do something. Mi-young studied his face for a moment, then nodded. All right. But we do this my way. Quiet and careful. If Taemin suspects we are investigating him, he will disappear like all the others. 5 days later, Hyun-woo and Mi-young arrived at Kepler Station. It was a rough place built from old cargo containers and scrap metal. Traders, smugglers, and people who did not want to be found mixed together in the crowded corridors. The air smelled of engine fuel and alien spices. They had been watching the main docking bay for 6 hours when Mi-young grabbed Hyun-woo's arm. There, she whispered. Man in his 40s was walking toward one of the supply vendors. He looked ordinary enough. Average height, brown hair, nothing special about his clothes. But Mi-young had shown Hyun-woo his photograph during the trip to Kepler Station. That is definitely Taemin, she said. They followed him at a distance as he moved through the station. He visited several vendors buying large quantities of medical supplies and protein rations. Each purchase was paid for with untraceable credit chips. Taemin finished his shopping and headed toward the docking bays. Mi-young and Hyun-woo followed, staying in the shadows. They watched him load his supplies onto a small cargo ship that looked like 1,000 others in the galaxy. Should we approach him now? Hyun-woo asked. Not yet. Let us see where he goes. They quickly returned to their own ship and followed Taemin at a safe distance. His destination surprised them both. Instead of heading to deep space, he went to a nearby asteroid mining facility called Series 7. Why would he go there? Hyun-woo wondered. Maybe to pick up someone, Mi-young said. They watched from a hiding spot behind a large asteroid as Taemin docked with the mining station. An hour later, his ship left again. But this time it was not alone. 3 other small ships followed him into space. "This is it," Mi-young said. "Whatever operation he is running, we are about to see it." They followed the small convoy for 2 days, jumping through hyperspace and navigating around asteroid fields. Finally, the ship stopped at what appeared to be empty space, but then something incredible happened. A massive space station uncloaked right in front of them. It was enormous, easily the size of a small moon. Docking bays dotted its surface like windows in a building. Ships were coming and going constantly, and all of the ships carried humans. "My God," Hyunwoo whispered. "How many people are on that station?" "Millions," Mi-young said, staring at the readings on her instruments. "Maybe tens of millions." They watched in amazement as Taemin's convoy docked with the station. More ships arrived every few minutes, all carrying human passengers. It was like watching a massive evacuation, except no one on the council knew it was happening. "We need to get closer," Hyunwoo said. "That is too dangerous. If they detect us, we have to risk it. We need to know what this is all about." Mi-young reluctantly agreed. She carefully maneuvered their ship closer to the station, using its own sensor shadow to hide their approach. As they got nearer, they could see through the transparent sections of the docking bays. Thousands of humans were moving through the corridors inside. Suddenly, their communication system activated. A voice filled their ship's cabin. "Unknown vessel, you are in restricted space. Identify yourself immediately." Mi-young and Hyunwoo looked at each other. They had been discovered. "This is Investigator Mi-young with the Council Security Division," she said. "We are conducting an authorized investigation." There was a long pause. Then the voice came back, but it was different now. Older, more tired. "Council Security? How did you find us?" "We tracked supply purchases and ship movements," Mi-young said. "Who am I speaking to?" Another pause. "My name is Taemin, and I think it is time you learned the truth about what we are doing here." "Taemin." Hyunwoo leaned toward the communication device. "People think you are dead. In a way I am," Taemin said. "The person I used to be died when I learned what is coming. What we are all trying to survive." "What do you mean?" Mi-young asked. "Dock with Bay 12, Taemin said. "But I warn you, once you learn the truth, you cannot go back to your old lives. The knowledge will change everything." Hyunwoo and Mi-young looked at each other. They had come this far. They had to know the truth, no matter how dangerous it might be. As their ship moved toward the docking bay, Hyunwoo thought about all the missing humans. All the empty colonies and abandoned homes. The council had dismissed the disappearances as unimportant. But looking at this massive hidden station, he realized they were wrong. Something big was happening. Something that required millions of humans to leave their lives behind and hide in secret. And he was about to find out what it was. The docking bay doors opened and their ship settled onto the landing platform. Outside, Hyunwoo could see humans in simple work clothes moving cargo and equipment. They looked busy but not afraid. Whatever was happening here, these people had chosen to be part of it. "Ready?" Mi-young asked, her hand on the airlock controls. Hyunwoo nodded. "Let us go find out why our people have been disappearing." The airlock opened, and they stepped into a new world. A hidden world where millions of humans were preparing for something that the council knew nothing about. Taemin was waiting for them in the docking bay. He looked older than his photographs, with gray streaks in his hair and deep lines around his eyes, but his handshake was firm and his gaze was steady. "Welcome to Haven Station," he said. "I wish I could say it was good to see council representatives here, but honestly, it means our security is not as good as we thought." "How many people are on this station?" Hyunwoo asked, looking around at the busy corridors filled with humans. 43 million at last count, Taemin said, "and this is just one of 12 stations we have built." Mi-young stopped walking. 12 stations? How long has this been going on? We started planning 8 years ago. Construction began 5 years ago. The real evacuation started 2 years ago. Taemin gestured for them to follow him down a wide corridor. "We knew we would eventually be discovered, but we hoped to have more time." They passed through sections that looked like small cities. There were shops, schools, parks with real trees, and residential areas where families lived in comfortable apartments. Children played in playgrounds while their parents worked or studied. It did not look like people who were running away. It looked like people who were building a new life. "This is incredible," Hyunwoo said. "But why? Why leave your homes and build all this in secret?" Taemin stopped at a large window that looked out into space. In the distance, they could see other structures. Some completed, others still under construction. Because our homes are about to become death traps, he said. And the council either does not know or does not care. He led them to an elevator that took them deep into the station's core. When the doors opened, they stepped into a vast chamber filled with computers, holographic displays, and hundreds of people working at complex control stations. This is our research center, Taemin said, the most important place on the station. A woman approached them. She was young, maybe 30, with short black hair and intelligent eyes that reminded Hyunwoo of Soo-jin. But where Soo-jin looked at data, this woman looked like she could see patterns that others missed. This is Jin-ai, Taemin said. She is the person who discovered what is coming. Jin-ai nodded politely but did not waste time with pleasantries. How much do you know about galactic history? She asked. The basics, Mi-young said. The council was formed 300 years ago to keep peace between species. Before that, there were wars and conflicts, but nothing that threatened the whole galaxy. That is what everyone believes, Jin-ai said. But it is not true. Come, let me show you something. She led them to a massive holographic display that showed the entire galaxy. But this was not a normal star map. Instead of showing current civilizations, it showed something else. Vast empty regions where stars existed but no intelligent life could be detected. These are dead zones, Jin-ai said. Places where advanced civilizations once existed but suddenly disappeared. The council thinks these areas were never inhabited, but deep space archaeology proves otherwise. She touched a control, and the display changed. Now it showed the galaxy as it was 1 million years ago. Thousands of star systems glowed with the signs of advanced civilizations. 1 million years ago, the galaxy was full of intelligent species, more than we have today. They had technology that we can barely understand. They could move planets, control stars, and travel between galaxies. Jin-ai paused. Then something killed them all. What kind of something? Hyunwoo asked. Automated defense systems, Jin-ai said. Left behind by an even older civilization that we call the Architects. These systems were designed to prevent any species from becoming too powerful or too aggressive. The display changed again, showing mysterious structures scattered throughout the galaxy. They looked like crystalline formations, beautiful but somehow dangerous. The Architect systems monitor galactic civilization, Jin-ai continued. When they detect that species have reached a certain level of technology and aggression, they activate. They test the species to see if they have evolved beyond their violent origins. If the species fail the test, they are destroyed, Mi-young finished. Completely. Their worlds are sterilized. Their technology is dismantled and their civilizations are erased from history. The galaxy is reset to allow evolution to begin again. Hyunwoo felt a cold chill run down his spine. How do you know all this? Because the Architect systems are about to activate again, Jin-ai said. The current galactic civilization has reached the threshold. The Council's military buildups, the territorial disputes, the arms races between species, and all of it has triggered the activation sequence. She touched another control, and the display showed real-time sensor readings from across the galaxy. In dozens of locations, strange energy signatures were growing stronger. The first Architect probe will emerge from hyperspace in approximately 6 months, Jin-ai said. It will scan the galaxy and determine whether current species have evolved beyond the patterns that destroyed previous civilizations. Based on our analysis of Architect technology, I estimate we have less than a year before the final judgment. And if we fail the test? Hyunwoo asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. Every intelligent species in the galaxy will be extinct within 2 years, Jin-ai said simply. The room fell silent except for the humming of computers and the quiet conversations of researchers working at their stations. Hyunwoo tried to process what he had just learned. The Council, with all its political games and military posturing, was leading every species in the galaxy toward destruction. Does the Council know about this? Mi-young asked. We sent reports to every major species, Taemin said. The Velthari dismissed it as human propaganda. The Zephyrians said they would form a committee to study it. The Krextai said they were too busy with trade negotiations. None of them took it seriously. So you decided to save who you could, Hyunwoo said. Not just save, Jin-ai said. Prepare. The Architect systems can be reasoned with, but only by a species that proves it has truly evolved. We have been studying their technology and their tests. We think we know what they are looking for. which is a species that can put the survival of all life above their own immediate interests. A species that can unite with former enemies when facing extinction. A species that can choose cooperation over domination. Taemin walked to another display that showed the hidden human stations. We are not just hiding, Ambassador. We are preparing to save the entire galaxy, but we need time and we need everyone to be ready when the test begins. What kind of test? Young asked. The architect systems will give galactic civilization a series of challenges, Gine said. Some will be technological, problems that can only be solved by multiple species working together. Others will be moral, situations where species must choose between their own survival and the greater good. And if any species fails, then all species fail. The test is designed to evaluate the galaxy as a whole, not individual civilizations. Hyunwoo thought about the council meeting where his concerns about missing humans had been laughed at. The Velthari thought they were superior to everyone else. The Zephyrians cared more about paperwork than people. The Krextai only wanted profit. How could species like that possibly pass a test of cooperation and selflessness? The council will never work together, he said. They can barely agree on trade routes, much less cooperate to save the galaxy. That is why we are preparing in secret, Taemin said. When the test begins, we will already have the infrastructure in place to coordinate the response. We will have studied the problems and prepared solutions. We will be ready to guide the other species even if they do not want our help. But first, we need to survive the initial contact, Jinae said. The first architect probe will arrive soon. It will scan the major council worlds and assess the current state of galactic civilization. If it sees only military buildups and territorial disputes, it might decide that immediate extinction is necessary. So, what do we do? Mi-young asked. We prepare for the greatest deception in galactic history, Taemin said. We need to make it look like humanity has learned to value peace over power, that we have evolved beyond the violence that destroyed previous civilizations. How? By disappearing completely from the Council's military forces, by abandoning our colonies just before the probe arrives, by making it appear that humans have chosen exile over participation in galactic conflicts. Hyunwoo began to understand. You are making humanity look weak and peaceful so the architect systems will not see us as a threat. Exactly. While the other species are building bigger weapons and claiming more territory, humans will appear to be running away from conflict. When the probe scans the galaxy, it will see military species and one species that chose peace. But what about after the probe leaves? Mi-young asked. Then we reveal ourselves, Jinae said. We show the galaxy what we have learned about the architect systems. We offer to help coordinate the response to their tests. We try to save everyone, even the species that laughed at us. And if they refuse our help? Taemin and Jinae looked at each other. The answer was in their eyes, even though neither wanted to say it out loud. Then we save who we can, Taemin said finally. And we hope that when the next cycle of evolution begins, the species that emerge will be wiser than the ones we could not save. The first architect probe emerged from hyperspace exactly when Ginny had predicted. It appeared near the galactic core, close to the major council worlds. The probe was massive, a crystalline structure the size of a small moon that seemed to bend light around itself as it moved. Hyunwoo was in the council chamber when the emergency alarms began sounding. Every species representative rushed to their seats as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Unknown object detected. Technology unlike anything in our databases. No response to communication attempts. Council Speaker Thekmore stood at the center of the chamber, his forearms gesturing wildly as he tried to maintain order. His blue skin had turned a darker shade, a sign of stress among the Velthari. Reports indicate a single vessel of unknown origin, he announced. It is scanning our worlds and installations but has made no aggressive moves. A Zephyrian delegate stood up. Our defense protocols require immediate military response to unidentified vessels in council space. I agree, said a Krextai representative, clicking his mandibles. We should surround it with our fleet and demand identification. Hyunwoo watched the panic growing around him. This was exactly what Ginny had warned about. The council's first instinct was to respond with force, the very behavior that would prove to the architect systems that galactic civilization had not evolved beyond violence. He stood up. Speaker Thekmore, I request permission to address the council. Thekmore's large eyes focused on him with irritation. Ambassador Hyunwoo, This is not the time for human concerns about missing colonists. This is not about missing colonists, Hyunwoo said. This is about survival. I believe I know what that probe is and why it is here. The chamber fell silent. For the first time in months, every delegate was listening to what he had to say. That probe is a scout from an ancient automated defense system. Hyunwoo continued. It is here to determine whether our civilization has evolved beyond the violent patterns that destroyed previous galactic empires. Laughter erupted from the Velthari section. Ancient defense systems? Thekmor said. What fantasy is this? It is not fantasy, Hyunwoo said firmly. We have evidence. Archaeological data from dead civilizations, technology analysis, predictive models that showed exactly when and where this probe would appear. And where is this evidence? Demanded a Krextai delegate. Hyunwoo hesitated. He could not tell them about the hidden human stations without exposing everything, but he had to make them understand the danger. The evidence was presented to this council 2 years ago, he said. Reports were sent to every major species. They were ignored or dismissed because they were human nonsense, Thekmor said. And this probe is probably just a lost exploration vessel from some unknown species. We will capture it and demand answers. No, Hyunwoo said. Any aggressive action will trigger a response that will destroy us all. The probe is testing us. It wants to see if we react with violence or wisdom. Enough of this foolishness, Thekmor declared. I am ordering the combined fleet to surround the intruder and force it to surrender. Around the chamber, delegates began activating their communication devices to contact their home fleets. Hyunwoo watched in horror as the galaxy's military forces prepared to do exactly what would doom them all. But then something unexpected happened. As reports came in from various star systems, a pattern emerged that no one had anticipated. Speaker Thekmor, a Zephyrian aide, said, We are receiving strange reports from across the galaxy. Human populations on multiple worlds are abandoning their military posts. What do you mean, abandoning? Thekmor asked. Human soldiers are walking away from their units. Human workers are leaving military shipyards and weapons factories. Human officers are resigning their commissions. They are all saying the same thing, that they refuse to participate in any military action against the probe. More reports flooded in. On world after world, humans were simply walking away from anything connected to the military. They left their posts, their equipment, their weapons. They gathered in public spaces and declared that they would not be part of any aggressive response to the unknown vessel. Hyunwoo felt a surge of pride mixed with fear. This was part of the plan that Taimin and Jinne had developed. By refusing to participate in military action, humans would appear to be the only species that had chosen peace over violence, but it was also incredibly risky. This is treason, shouted a Velthari military commander. Human forces are abandoning their duties during a crisis. Maybe they know something we do not, Hyunwoo said quietly. Over the next few hours, the situation became more complex. The Architect probe continued its scans, but it also began broadcasting something, a series of mathematical sequences and geometric patterns that appeared on every screen and communication device in the galaxy. Jinne's voice reached Hyunwoo through a secure channel that had been set up months ago. The probe is issuing the first test, she said. It is a cooperation puzzle. The patterns can only be solved if multiple species work together, sharing their different mathematical and logical approaches. Hyunwoo looked around the council chamber. The delegates were arguing about military responses and demanding answers about human behavior. No one was paying attention to the patterns appearing on their screens. Speaker Thekmor, he called out. The probe is trying to communicate with us. These patterns are not random, they are a test. A test of what? Thekmor demanded. A test of whether we can work together instead of fighting each other. But even as Hyunwoo spoke, the various species were preparing for war. Velthari dreadnoughts moved into position around the probe. Krextai hive ships launched their fighter swarms. Zephyrian defensive platforms activated their weapon systems. The probe's response was immediate and terrifying. It sent out a pulse of energy that disabled every weapon that was aimed at it. Ships lost power. Fighters crashed. Defense platforms went dark. But the probe did not destroy anything. It simply removed the ability to attack. Then it sent a new message, this time in the languages of every species in the galaxy. Galactic civilization has 72 hours to demonstrate evolutionary progress. 3 tests will be administered. Failure will result in extinction protocol activation. First test, solve the cooperation sequence. Second test, demonstrate unity of purpose. Third test, sacrifice for the greater good. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Some delegates called for immediate evacuation of their home worlds. Others demanded that backup fleets be summoned from distant systems. A few actually began looking at the mathematical patterns on their screens. Hyunwoo knew that this was the moment everything would be decided. Either the galaxy would work together and pass the tests, or billions of lives would be lost. He stood up again. We need to solve these puzzles. All of us working together. The Velthari are experts in strategic thinking. The Zephyrians excel at complex mathematics. The Krextai understand pattern recognition better than anyone. And humans, and he paused. Humans are good at seeing connections that others miss. You want us to trust human guidance in this crisis? Thekmor said. I want you to trust that survival requires cooperation, Hyunwoo replied. Slowly, reluctantly, some delegates began working on the mathematical sequences. A Zephyrian mathematician found a pattern in the geometric shapes. A Krextai engineer discovered that the sequences were actually blueprints for a communication device. A Velthari strategist realized that the blueprints required resources and knowledge from multiple species to build. But progress was slow, and arguments kept breaking out. Different species wanted to take control of the project. Others refused to share their part of the solution with rivals. The 72-hour deadline was approaching, and they had solved only the first part of the first test. Then Woo Jin's voice filled the chamber. He was speaking from a hidden transmission source, his image appearing on every screen in the council building. People of the galaxy, he said, my name is Woo Jin. I speak for the humans who have been disappearing from your worlds. The chamber fell silent. Every delegate stared at the screen, where a middle-aged human man looked directly at them. We did not abandon you, Woo Jin continued. We have been preparing to save you. For 2 years, we have been building the infrastructure needed to coordinate a galactic response to this crisis. We have studied the architect systems. We know what they want, and we know how to give it to them. Where are you? Thekmor demanded. We are everywhere and nowhere, Woo Jin said. We are in hidden stations throughout the galaxy, ready to help coordinate the response to these tests. But we cannot do it alone. We need every species to choose cooperation over conflict. We need you to trust us, even though you have spent years treating us as inferior. Why should we trust you? A Krextai delegate clicked. Because we are the only ones who saw this coming, Woo Jin said simply. Because we gave up our homes and our lives to prepare for this moment. Because we are willing to sacrifice everything to save everyone, even those who laughed at our warnings. On the screen, Woo Jin gestured to something behind him. The view expanded to show a massive operation. Hundreds of humans working at computer stations, coordinating with teams across the galaxy. The first test requires you to build a communication device using the patterns the probe provided, he said. The first test was completed with 6 hours to spare. Working together, the combined knowledge of all galactic species had built the communication device exactly as the architect probe had specified. It was a beautiful crystalline structure that hummed with energy and seemed to bend space around itself. When the device activated, it sent a signal that reached every corner of the galaxy. The probe responded with what could only be described as approval, a gentle pulse of warm light that made everyone who saw it feel oddly peaceful. But there was no time to celebrate. The second test had already begun. Young-Soo stood in the coordination center of Haven Station, watching data streams from across the galaxy. As one of the lead engineers working with the hidden human fleet, he had spent months preparing for this moment. Now he was helping to coordinate the most complex operation in galactic history. Status report, he called out to his team. Velthari industrial worlds are converting their weapons factories to produce medical supplies, reported Haywan from her station. Zephyrian administrative networks are being used to coordinate refugee movements. Krextai trade routes are carrying emergency supplies instead of luxury goods. The second test had been simple in concept, but terrifying in execution. The architect probe had created an artificial crisis, a series of natural disasters across dozens of worlds that required immediate humanitarian response. But the disasters were designed so that no single species could handle them alone. Volcanic eruptions on Velthari industrial worlds needed Zephyrian atmospheric processing technology to clear the toxic clouds. Quantum storms near Krextai trading hubs required Velthari shield generators to protect the evacuation ships. Massive earthquakes on agricultural worlds needed human, organizational skills to coordinate the rescue efforts. The test was measuring whether the galaxy species could put aside their differences and focus on saving lives instead of protecting their own interests. How are we doing on the evacuation numbers? Youngsu asked. Better than expected, Heiwan replied. 43 million people evacuated in the last 18 hours. The cooperation is actually working. But Youngsu could see the strain showing. On his screens, he watched arguments breaking out between species as resources ran low, and decisions became harder. The Velthari wanted to prioritize their own industrial worlds. The Zephyrians kept demanding proper paperwork before allowing refugee ships to land. The Krextai were calculating the economic cost of every supply shipment. This is taking too long, said So Young, who was coordinating with the diplomatic teams. We have 12 hours left and we still need to save millions more people. The species are starting to fall back into old patterns. Then we need to do something dramatic, Youngsu said. Something that shows them what real cooperation looks like. He opened a communication channel to Wu Jin, who was still serving as the public face of the human coordination effort. We need to reveal the hidden fleet, Youngsu said. All of it. That is a big risk, Wu Jin replied. If we show them how much we have been preparing, some species might see it as a threat instead of help. But if we do not show them, millions of people will die in the disasters, and we will fail the second test. Wu Jin was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. Do it. Reveal everything. Youngsu sent the activation signal across the galaxy. In systems throughout known space, human ships began uncloaking. Not just the few vessels that the Council knew about, but thousands of ships that had been hidden for months. Construction ships, hospital ships, transport vessels, supply runners. An entire shadow fleet that had been secretly positioned to help during exactly this kind of crisis. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. On Council worlds, people looked up to see fleets of human ships appearing in their skies. The vessels immediately began assisting with the disaster response, evacuating people from danger zones and delivering supplies to areas that other species could not reach. On Nexus Prime, Hyunwoo watched through his office window as dozens of human ships appeared around the Council capital. Their hulls bore no weapons, only rescue equipment and medical symbols. But their sheer number was impressive, enough to evacuate the entire planet if necessary. His communication device buzzed. It was Speaker Thekmore. Ambassador, the Velthari leader said, we need to talk, immediately. 20 minutes later, Hyunwoo sat across from Thekmore in the Council Speaker's private office. The tall alien's forearms were folded and his blue skin had taken on a greenish tint, another sign of stress. How long have you been planning this? Thekmore asked. Planning what? Do not pretend ignorance. These ships, this coordination network, the disappearances. How long have humans been preparing for this crisis? Hyunwoo took a deep breath. There was no point in lying anymore. 8 years of planning. 5 years of construction. 2 years of positioning. And you said nothing to the Council? We tried. We sent reports. We warned about the coming crisis. Everyone ignored us or laughed at us. Thekmore stood up and walked to his window, looking out at the human ships moving through the sky like a well-coordinated rescue operation. We thought humans were weak, he said quietly. We thought you were running away because you could not compete with stronger species. We were never running away, Hyunwoo said. We were preparing to save everyone. Even those who treated you badly, especially those who treated us badly. Because that is what evolution means, choosing to help instead of choosing to hurt. The second test was completed with 30 minutes to spare. The combined efforts of all species, coordinated by the human network, had saved over 100 million lives from the artificial disasters. The Architect probe sent another pulse of approval, but this one was stronger, almost celebratory. However, the third test was the most difficult yet. The probe's message was simple but devastating. One species must voluntarily sacrifice their military capability to prove that galactic civilization has evolved beyond the need for warfare. Choose wisely. You have 12 hours. The Council chamber erupted in chaos. Every species immediately looked at their rivals, trying to decide who should be forced to disarm. The Velthari suggested the Krextai, claiming their trade fleets were actually military vessels in disguise. The Krextai pointed at the Zephyrians, saying their bureaucratic networks were really intelligence operations. The Zephyrians wanted the Velthari to disarm, calling them the most aggressive species in the galaxy. As the arguments grew louder, Hyunwoo realized what was happening. This was not really a test of which species should disarm. It was a test of whether any species would voluntarily give up their power for the greater good. He stood up slowly. Around him the arguing continued, but something in his posture made a few delegates notice. "The answer is obvious," he said in a quiet voice that somehow carried through the chamber. The arguing stopped. Everyone looked at him. "Humans will disarm," he said. "Completely. Every weapon, every military vessel, every defense system. We will destroy it all." The chamber fell silent. Speaker Thekmore stared at him with all four eyes wide. "You cannot be serious," he said. "Without weapons, humans would be helpless. Any species could conquer your worlds." "Yes," Hyunwoo said simply. "We would be completely vulnerable. We would have to trust that the rest of the galaxy has evolved enough to protect us instead of exploit us. That is..." Thekmore paused, struggling for words. "That is either the bravest thing I have ever heard, or the most foolish." "Maybe both," Hyunwoo said. "But it is what evolution looks like. Choosing trust over fear, choosing cooperation over domination." The debate that followed was intense. Some delegates argued that forcing humans to disarm was wrong, that the burden should be shared. Others worried that without human military support, the galaxy would be less secure. A few species offered to disarm alongside humans, but in the end, the decision was made. With 2 hours left before the deadline, the human fleet began systematically destroying its own weapons. Warships fired their missiles into empty space until their magazines were empty, then dismantled their weapons systems. Defense platforms powered down their shields and deactivated their guns. Even personal weapons were collected and destroyed. Young-Soo watched from Haven Station as centuries of human military development was voluntarily erased. It was terrifying and beautiful at the same time. "Status report," he called to his team. 97% of human military assets have been destroyed or deactivated, Haewon reported. The remaining 3% will be finished within the hour. Any resistance from human military units? None. Everyone understands what is at stake. With 30 minutes to spare, the last human weapon was destroyed. The Architect probe scanned the galaxy one final time, its sensors confirming that one entire species had voluntarily chosen to become completely defenseless. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Instead of the gentle pulses they had received before, the probe sent out a wave of energy that felt like joy, pure cosmic joy that touched every living being in the galaxy. Then the probe began to change. Its crystalline structure unfolded like a flower, revealing technology that was beautiful beyond description. When it spoke again, its voice was warm and proud. "Galactic civilization has demonstrated adequate evolutionary progress. The species known as humans